Well, hello and welcome to another edition of the E-commerce Evolution Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Curry, CEO of OMG Commerce. And I'm not exaggerating when I say I really couldn't be more excited about today's show because if you've listened for a while, I'm a self-proclaimed marketing junkie. I've always liked ads. I've always liked TV ads, and specifically, I've always liked infomercials. Yes, that's correct. I've always loved infomercials and DRTV ads. And so today I have a legend in the space joining me on the show, Jordan Pine. Jordan Pine is Cymark's founder and president, also the co-founder of Paragon Products. And he's a blogger. He's a student of DRTV. He's been running campaigns forever. He's one of the masterminds behind the wildly successful tack light, tack glasses. I think there's a tack lantern, tack all kinds of stuff, and also some microwave cookers, which have done phenomenally well. He's a trusted name. Everyone wants to talk to him if they're looking at DRTV. And I think there's a lot we can learn from DRTV. One thing that I've said over and over again is that YouTube is actually very similar to DRTV. So we're going to get into that as we dive into the podcast. So with that, Jordan, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time. And how you doing?
Well, thank you for that amazing introduction. I'm going to have you do all my introductions in the future.
I like being
thanks for having me
man.
on.
It's a fun
Yes,
gig.
great.
So and yeah, man, what an amazing career, what an amazing background. I knew we were going to be friends when you'd reached out to talk about YouTube with me, and I just mentioned the Ginsu Knife commercial, right? Because it's one of the earliest commercials I remember watching the Ginsu Knife commercial as a kid and thinking, one, this is awesome. I got to talk my parents into buying it, which they didn't. And then two, like, who makes these? It's fun. Like, who makes these ads? But as we talked about it, you immediately fired me a YouTube link to like the original. Because I think I must have seen the ads in the late 80s or 90s, but this was like from 1978, which was awesome. So
Yeah, great campaign.
great.
And a very iconic, memorable opening with the hand can be used like a knife, but it doesn't work so well on a tomato. That opening is probably in the if there's going to be a DRTV Hall of Fame, it'll definitely be
It's got to
one of the
be
main
one of the
main
all-time
ones.
greats. Yeah, just
Sure.
engaging. You basically have to watch that. Yeah, when it says in Japan, the hand can be used like a knife. It's got this. This guy's got this great voice. And he chops through the wood, but then does not work on a tomato. So it's fantastic. So give us your background a little bit. So I've talked about some of your successes, but like, how did you get into the DRTV world?
Yeah, it's great. Sideways, I guess I would say. I've had 3 careers, 4 if you count a brief stint as a private eye. But
Nice.
First, I was a soldier. I joined the Army out of high school, and I served 4 years active duty and 4 years reserve. All in peacetime, as it turned
Thank
out.
you for your service.
There weren't any major. Oh, yeah, yes. I will accept that, but there's a lot of guys that have done multiple tours now that
Yeah,
have done way
yeah.
more than me. I was lucky enough, from my mother's perspective at least, to not be sent to any major wars or spend any time in war zones. It was the
doubt.
peace years of the 90s. But after that, I was a journalist. I went to college on the GI Bill, and I got a degree in journalism from Rutgers University, and I was a working journalist for several years, a business journalist. And then I got into digital marketing, and I had a friend that I had met in the National Guard, that was the reserves that I served in, that was recruited right out of college into one of the top as seen on TV companies. And later on, he said, a few years later, he said the brother of the CEO of my former company, and he's looking for a marketing director. Would you be interested? He'd always told me how crazy the industry was, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll meet with him. And pretty much the rest is history. I got recruited by him as a director of marketing, and then eventually spent 5 years there, became VP of marketing. But I really loved the industry from day one. My current business partner and best friend, the one that brought me into the industry, Bill Corliss, he used to always tell me these stories, and they were like larger than life stories. And then I joined, and it was every bit as crazy and fun and full of characters as he had said it would be. And sharks, of course.
Yes.
His epic advice to me when I first started was, always remember, these are the kind of people that will stab you in the back and then ask for their knife back.
So descriptive and somewhat terrifying as well. So yeah, when did you? Or let's just talk about this for a minute, because I've got a perspective here too. What do you like about DRTV? So yes, there's some larger than life characters, and the products are fun, but like what is it about this combination that makes you love DRTV? And
mean,
just for a side note, we started talking about this. For those that don't know, DRTV stands for direct response. So instead of ads that are aimed at branding and positioning and driving response at some point, direct response ads are designed to get someone to, in the early days, pick up the phone or mail order or something, or visit a site and make a purchase. And so DR, direct response. But yeah, when did you, or what is it about the combination of things that you like so well?
Yeah, so the direct that you're talking about there is really what appealed to me. Just you can get immediate feedback on whether something is working or not, and that's I mean, besides all the crazy characters, and this industry comes out of boardwalk pitchmen, so there's a lot of interesting selling techniques going on. But what I really liked about it from a marketer standpoint is you can immediately see, and it's really fast too in our industry. Within a couple of weeks, you can know whether this creative idea, whether this product idea that you had actually resonates with consumers or not, using cable television testing. So I always like that. I always like making the phones ring. These days, making the servers light up. However you want to phrase that. You can actually immediately see the impact of your decisions, of your marketing strategy, of your creative, and you really can't beat it. And it was also in the beginning when I started in the industry, it was the only type of advertising that actually made money. Now that isn't the case. But when we started, we would make money in direct sales off of TV, and forget about paying for your advertising. You're making a profit for the first 6 months. And then you go to retail and you've got all this advertising behind you, and suddenly it blows out at retail. So it was a beautiful, beautiful model. It still is in many ways, but especially in the early days that I started, it was a very beautiful model because, like I said, all your advertising is making you money in addition to fueling your eventual retail sales.
Yeah, which is just wild. So making money on the front end, and then I know you really can explode when you hit the retail store shelves, and then you have all those ads kind of fueling the growth. I know for me, I've just always loved the art of a good ad, and especially like the psychology of selling. And you talk about some of the greatest pitch people on DRTV spots or infomercials. They're like boardwalk pitch people, right? And there's just something about the psychology, the art and science of that as well that's super interesting to me. What are the phrases that cause someone to lean in? What are the phrases that cause someone to almost feel like they have to purchase? And so I love the psychology of it, love the art of it. And then there's nothing like the rush of when people start responding, right? And when I was in college, I worked for a radio station, and I was involved with this live broadcast one time. And this was like early on. I'll never forget this. This was like early on when I realized I may be kind of hooked on marketing. So we did this live broadcast for a jewelry store, and I was kind of involved. I got to get on air a couple times and whatnot. But people started like flocking to this jewelry store, and they were selling stuff, and the owner was happy, and I was like, this is pretty fun. Like, this is pretty exciting. There's some real juice going on here, And so, when you see a campaign that's working, it's still super exciting to me. So,
it's like that excitement. That's why I love the industry. So you go into the CEO's office, and you'd have the report, and you'd have all these phone orders and all these web orders, and you're like, we got a hit. We use a metric, a KPI called cost per order. It's like CPA, but CPO. And the CPO is so low, and we just have a party, pop the champagne. It's so exciting to see your work immediately, give you those results.
That's amazing. It's amazing. Cool. So we talked about Ginsu Knives as kind of the one of the all-time greats, the Hall of Fame. It's definitely in Canton for sure. And then mentioned TacLite and the spin-offs then of that, and some of the microwave cookers that you've been involved with. But what are a few of your all-time favorite DRTV campaigns, and why?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm really a big fan of anything by the pitchman that started the business. So, Ron Popeil, Billy Mays. My two favorite commercials of all time are both Billy Mays commercials. The first one would be OxyClean, the original OxyClean commercial that he did. And really, it's because the technique, of course, is flawless, and it had one of the best magic demos of all time. A magic demo in our trade, magic demonstration, is sort of what it sounds like. It's a demonstration that's so good it's almost like a magic trick, although it's not. And he had this giant tank of dye, and he drops the scoop of OxyClean in, and the red dye tank turns clear. I mean, so if you Google that or go on YouTube and find that commercial and just watch it, it's really a clinic in great DR selling, and so that's probably my favorite commercial of all time with Billy Mays, the late great Billy Mays. And the second one would be a commercial called Mighty Putty. Mighty Putty was like a putty that cured so that it would bond things together. And again, another Billy Mays commercial, and that probably those commercials had some of the best torture test demos, as we called it, where they pull a tractor trailer, they lift a bus, they pull a plane later on, those kind of, again, magic demonstrations, which I love. Because at the end of the day, it's a little bit of a P.T. Barnum style business. Right. It's a Barnum technique. And if you can really get what we call wow factor or wow going in a commercial, it can really cover over a multitude of sins, but it can also really just kick you into the next level in terms of getting buzz and driving sales. So I love the old pitchmen. I love all of Billy Mays' work. I mentioned Ron Popeil. Ron Popeil was one of the guys who started the industry. So any of his infomercials, Showtime Rotisserie, Set It and Forget It. And in the modern era, the guys that really worked with Billy and did a lot of the great classic commercials like John Miller and Peter Hutton from Hutton Miller. Those are the guys behind the scenes, the creative geniuses that do a lot of the commercials you even see today. They did all the Mighty Putty stuff and stuff like that. So those are the guys that are their work is at the top of my list for sure.
Yeah, Billy Mays, man, he's like the Michael Jordan of DRTV. Like he's just one of the greatest. And Ron Popeil, I've heard his name forever, so I know he's a legend as well. And there's something about that magic demo or the torture test. I love that. I never heard that phrase, but I've called it the over the top demo as well, right? Where you got like. It's good to show the product in actual use. Like this is specifically what I'm going to use it for because, people need to be told and there needs to be that suggestion of, hey, you can fix your pots with it and you can fix this and that and whatnot. But then you see the magic demo and now you're like, man, I got to get this. Nothing like this. It creates that real emotional draw. I still remember, you probably remember this ad too. This wasn't exactly DRTV because it was short form TV commercial, but it was more direct response. It was for super glue, where like two guys walk into a room carrying a dude, and they glue him to the ceiling, right? And it's like this ad was not cut, and they put glue on his shoes and stick him to the ceiling. And I'm like, man, that's amazing! Like you got to buy super glue. So
I think the original version was a beam. He was dangling the hard hat from a beam.
From a beam,
I don't know if they hung him off a building, but if you go, that was like the original super glue demo. They glued the helmet to an I-beam or whatever, and he was hanging off of a beam. Yeah,
and I assume that's legit. Like were those real demos, or do you know?
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I'm sure they were with many different safety. As someone who's done 150 plus of these commercials, there are things that you do where you have like safety things in place that might be off camera. I don't know if he was hanging off like the Empire State Building. That would probably be. Yeah. You would never get permission or insurance for something like that to hang your actor off of a. But yes, they're always real demos. Maybe off camera, like I said, there's some safety features. There might be hopefully there's a cord connected to the guy's ankle in case he falls or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. So,
but what you were saying. Sorry to cut you off. What you were saying, that balance between demonstrating the product in real life, all the everyday uses. Like Mighty Putty is a great example. You can stick a mailbox on. You can you can do this. You can do that. You can plug a leak. But then they have that. What I call it is the not that you would, but you could pull a tractor trailer with it. So that's. It is a balance. You have to make sure you get enough of those everyday demos as well as that magic demo that kind of really proves the point.
Not that you would, but you could. I love that. So let's break down what are some of the successful elements, because I think there are lots of lessons here, and we're going to talk about how to tie this into digital marketing kind of as we go here. But what are some of the elements of a successful DRTV campaign?
Okay, great. So when I started, I studied all the old masters and the current greats as well, and I read their books. I interviewed them if possible, and of course, I work with
Who are
them.
some of your
And
just quickly? Who are some of your favorites of kind of the all time greats?
yeah, sure. So the all-time greats, you got you got Albert Lasker and Kennedy, which was a cohort of his. You have Claude Hopkins. Claude Hopkins wrote a
My
book
Life in
100 years
Advertising,
ago.
Scientific Advertising.
Yes, Scientific Advertising, which was the inspiration for the name of my consulting company, SciMark. You got John Caples, Tested Advertising Methods.
So good. Yeah.
Of course, you got the Mad Men guys. You got David Ogilvy, Rosser Reeves, personal favorite. Mad Men. They might have even based Don Draper on him.
On Rosser Reeves.
On Rosser Reeves, yeah, and he was like a great kind of cranky guy. He has some great quotes that I could share with you from that era. But and then you have Al Eichhoff. He's one of the early Acid on TV guys. I mentioned Ron Popeil. Joe Sugarman. Joe Sugarman was a print guy, DR print guy, but he wrote so many books that are super valuable.
Yeah, I love his book Triggers. So it's a really
yeah.
fast read. It's like every chapter is 2 or 3 pages. Super fun. It's one I highly recommend. You can grab it on Amazon. So it's a great read.
Actually, behind me, you can't see it, but behind me, I have I'm a book collector, so I have a library of. I mean, it's only like what was it, 30 or 40 books, but it's all the key books that have been done by all the DR masters. So
nice, yeah.
I have his books in there, Sugarman, for sure.
I bought Triggers. My son is doing sales. He's only 20, but he definitely stole my Triggers books. I got to buy a new one. But I was glad to let him have
a lot of wisdom.
Use that education for sure. So cool. So I cut you off. We kind of went on a rabbit trail there, talking about some of the greats. But you're talking about elements of success. You want to interview some of these guys. So like, who all did you interview? Just curious about that.
So, and I didn't finish my whole list, but in the more modern era, there's the Kubani brothers, AJ, Andy, and his brother Chuck. I worked for Andy, and I've partnered with AJ since then. But in those days, he was they were brothers, and they all have 3 different companies, and they're a big force in Acid on TV. So just working for the one brother and studying under the other brother, I got a chance to interview them. I interviewed Billy Mays. I interviewed Ron Popeil, met Ron Popeil, interviewed him. So anybody that was that I had access to or that was still living. A lot of the guys I mentioned earlier are not living anymore, but the guys that were still living at that time, I worked with them, I interviewed them, and I compiled, these lists. That was kind of how I started as a journalist. I'm a journalist coming into. I had some marketing experience, but on the digital side, early digital too. We're talking about like. So you're a Google guy. Remember when it was just a colored banner across the top of this? Of course, always a bare bones search engine, but their first ads were So we actually were a small company that I worked for in New Jersey. We were one of the first people to advertise in the tri-state area on that banner, and we used to have the Google team come in and talk to us about advertising at that time. So that's my digital marketing experience. It was way before the dot-com bubble burst, basically, and my company survived because it was self-funded and it wasn't venture-backed, but it was one of the few at that time, and I went through that period. But anyway, so I come in as a journalist, and I don't really know, much about Acid on TV at all, infomercials. So this is what I did. I interviewed people, I took notes, I made lists, and I eventually condensed these lists down. There's a saying in DR that it's a success, and it probably applies or comes from other industries as well. Success is 80% product and 20% creative. So I set out to understand what the product criteria were that these guys were looking for, and what the selling techniques were in their creative approach. And I ended up with, in the end, I had the Divine 7 and TNT.
The Divine 7 and TNT. Okay, do explain.
Yes. So the Divine 7 is 7 key product criteria for, particularly for Acid on TV products. And TNT stands for tried and true. It's 10 tried and true selling techniques for Acid on TV commercials. And I'd be happy to go through those. Do you want to go through them?
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. Yeah, and we probably won't be able to key in on all of them in much detail, but let's go through it for sure.
Okay, so the Divine 7, number 1 is unique, and that's really about perception. So it has to be perceived to be new and different, right? Number 2 is mass market. Our ideal would be 1 per person, which obviously you can sometimes get there with sunglasses. You could say my market size is 1 per person. You could have multiple people in a house. that wear my sunglasses. But usually it's about one per household. That's how we look at it. At least one household, one can be in every household in America. Problem solving.
If you feel like that's truly the total addressable market, that's when you know you've got a mass market enough offer. Got it.
Yes. Well, also because, and this is something that's important to understand, what we do is we test cable television networks, big ones, Fox News and big news channels, stuff like that, as well as it's a moving list based on rates. But when we air a commercial, it's airing everywhere. It's not local. It's not a regional air. It's a national air. So if you don't have an item that appeals to the entire nation or every household in the nation, then you're really just wasting money.
You're wasting exposure.
It's not very targeted.
Spend. Yeah.
Right.
Got it.
And then number 3 is problem solving. I always describe this as the problem scale. I call it, 1 to 10. 1 is an itch, 10 is a heart attack. 7, you want to be like a 7 or higher on the problem scale in order to really grab people and sell to them. That's very important. I'll have a lot of people say and actually you can critique bad SC on TV commercials this way when they have that opening. Don't you hate when this happens to you? And you're like, no.
Not really. That's really not very painful.
Probably not strong enough. Yeah.
Got it. So it's got to be
do a minor inconvenience.
So it's not a heart attack, but it's certainly not just a little itch. It's like a 7.
It's a 7. It's like a 7. 7 or better. Yeah, that was my that's a sweet spot. It's obviously not an exact science. Priced right, that's just common sense. In our business, we operate on impulse purchase. So there's it varies by item, but typically with the consumer products that we do, that's why we're $19.99 to $14.99. We used to be $10 buy one get one, because those are impulse purchases. We used to say, it's easy to take a $10 bill out of your pocket. It's harder to take a $50 out. And obviously these numbers have moved around a little bit. Now it's $29.99 is a common price point. But when I started, it was $10, $14.99, $19.99. And the idea was, you don't have to think too much about spending that amount of money. Once you get into more money now,
you feel like you need to think about it. You feel like you need to talk to your spouse or somebody about it. Then you just don't do it, right? But if it's $15, $20, $30, like you just do it in the spur of the moment.
And if you've seen an as seen on TV section in a Walmart or whatever, it's always in an impulse area of the store. Yeah. So a checkout or there's an end cap, So you're on your way and you're like, oh, okay, grab that. I don't got to think too much about it. Throw it in my bag, throw it in my cart, and move on. So that's what priced right means. It's just an impulse price, not a considered purchase. And that's really about price to value. You can have a TV that's impulse priced. The loss leaders you see sometimes, they used to do $99 flat screens or whatever. It's just about price to value, but ultimately the idea is take it out of considered purchase. I got to think about it and move it into I'm excited, I'll just drop the money and buy it.
Got it. Love it. So number 5?
Number 5 is easily explained. We have longer than most because as seen on TV is what we call short form, is a 2-minute commercial.
Right.
Obviously, most commercials are 30 seconds, but that doesn't change, or less. That doesn't change. The consumer's been trained, the viewer's been trained to have about a 30-second attention span, if that. So if your product isn't easy to explain, you're not gonna get it done in that time. You're not gonna sell them. People come to me with what I call Swiss Army products that does 7 things, and I'm just like, this is not for us. There's no way I can explain those 7 things in 30 seconds or less. And I really have to communicate what it is, what it does, why it's different in that short period of time. And this will be more common sense now to people who are dealing with like TikTok and YouTube and things like that, because we know the attention spans are short. But again, when I started and I first compiled this list and refined it, it was insightful. People had longer attention spans back then.
Kind of sad, but true.
Yes.
So usually the DRTV, the short form DRTV commercials are 2 minutes or whatever. Yes. But are you kind of using a rule of thumb? I want to be able to explain everything though, like problem, solution, feature, benefit, demonstration in 30 seconds, because then you're reiterating it just for the rest of the time type of thing. Yeah,
you're reiterating it. We spend the rest of the the last 30 seconds of the commercial is going to be building an offer. We'll get to that when we talk about the TNT, but building an offer and all those things that will sound familiar to people. Yep. So the last 30 is gone. The first 30 you really have to establish the problem, make yourself the solution, and convince tell people what it is, what it does, why it's different in that first 30. And then the middle of the commercial is usually reserved for credibility boosters. Again, we'll talk about this in the TNT list, but credibility boosters, establishing value, that crazy magic demo. That's one of the biggest challenges. Like, okay, I want to emulate Billy Mays. I want to emulate, Hutton Miller, because they are the first ones to do these kind of things in a big way. So how do I do that? Now, how am I going to explain? I'm going to lift a bus with Mighty Putty. Obviously, I'm not doing that one, but a version of something like that in 60 seconds, like, okay, there's a bus, there's Mighty. So that middle part of the commercial, if you're doing something big and grand, a Barnum move, then you're going to need the middle of the commercial for that. And then, of course, it becomes even more challenging because we do run 60s, a double 30. So now you have to cut that down. So really, you got to be thinking. And again, this is going to sound less cutting edge than it might have sounded a few years ago. But you really got to be thinking about condensing your message into the shortest time possible, so that at least you get the sale down, and then you can do all these layering on top things to make it more exciting and convincing.
Totally makes sense. So what it is, what it does, what it solves, problem, solution, demonstration, all that in the first 30, or potentially less. Awesome. So then number 6.
Number 6 is age appropriate. So what that means is it's just a play on words, but DR tends to skew older, middle age and above. So I established that because people would try to do tween products, or especially these days, younger people aren't even watching
Correct.
TV. So, you got to make sure that the demographics of cable television or broadcast television are right for your product.
So generally, you're thinking like 40s and over, or boomer and older.
It's moved down. It used to be. I used to say 65 plus, because that's a sweet spot, because, or 50 plus, boomers and above, because that was really the sweet spot. The bulk of buyers off of TV were that age group. But then things have evolved, and I mean, when I started, I remember this clearly. I think web sales were 5% of total. It was like 95% phone sales. And no, I'm sorry, 90% phone sales, maybe 5% web, and 5% or more, a little bit more, was mail-in, send your check or money order to this address, right?
Mail-in.
And we did that for years. It diminished and it diminished, but it was still a significant percentage of our sales. So, and the websites were mall websites. I don't know if you remember those. It was like, You go there and it's like tons of products. We didn't even have our own web page domains. It was kind of like a proto Amazon that we just drove them straight to a product page.
I think I'll just mail it in. I could call, I could get online. I just want to mail it. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Or in the mall websites are awesome too. So, okay, so skews older, but it has shifted down a little bit, you would say?
Yeah. Now I'd say it's 35 plus, or even 30 plus. I wouldn't do teens.
Right.
I wouldn't do teens. I probably wouldn't do 20 somethings. I wouldn't do anything, maybe, it depends on what your goals are, but to get direct response, you're not going to get that,
Makes sense. Cool.
And then the last one is of the Divine 7 was credible or believable, although that can be a pretty low bar if you have enough wow and other factors going for you.
Right.
But sometimes we would look at quite a few products that, people just aren't going to believe it. So if you look at it and like, I know what you're saying, I remember an example would be someone bought like a cardboard square. It was reflective somehow, and their whole pitch was like, you put a potato on it and it just grows. So if you put this in your vegetable drawer somehow, things will grow and stay fresh. And I looked at it, and they had science.
I don't think
and
science
studies.
works that way. I'm not a botanist, but I don't think it works.
And I just had to say, like, even if they had research, and I'm like, well, even if I'm not a scientist, I'm not going to critique your study, but it's just people aren't going to believe it.
Right.
Take this cardboard square, put it in your refrigerator, and magically all your produce is going to stay fresh. I just I didn't believe it. But then again, there's a famous product called Green Bags, famous. I mean, it still sells today. That actually does work. And when you look at it the first time, you'd say, I don't know, putting my vegetables in a bag keeps them fresh. It actually works. There's some science behind why it works. So, like I said, credibility is a good criteria to keep in mind, but you'd be surprised sometimes how low the bar could be, as long as you do the other things right, and obviously, customer satisfaction, etc.
Got it. And that's where I think some of the magic demos you talked about You see it, and maybe you wonder a little bit, but you also kind of believe your eyes. Like you believe what you're seeing. Something like a magic piece of cardboard that grows produce or something. It's like, I don't know, that's too much. I'm sort of seeing it, but eh. So yeah, that totally makes sense. So the Divine Seven, that was worth the money to tune into the podcast right there. Divine Seven,
Divine
love it.
Seven,
But we're not done.
yes.
We're not done, folks. But wait,
Yes.
there's more.
Well, wait, there's more.
There's so much more. All right, so let's talk about you said 10 TNT, 10 of the tried and true.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, the Divine Seven. Just one last thing on
Yeah.
that. So later on, I've refined that and rejiggered it a little bit on my website. I think I have 8 criteria now. One that I added later that I think is important, I mentioned earlier, is wow. So sometimes if you have like a really amazing demonstration, a really magic demonstration, you can get by with not having some of the other Divine Seven.
Yeah.
And also the Divine Seven are not like required. They're not hard and fast. They are basically, if you want to have the best odds of success, you'll hit all 7 of those plus the wow, and then you have a pretty strong idea that you're gonna have something successful. Of course, you don't know until you actually put it in front of consumers and find out. So we use these criteria to this day, and I've been consulting with the big ads on TV companies for years as well, and they use these criteria just as a gut check, a way to sort of separate items. And then, of course, there's a whole process of validating and finding out if you're actually correct. But they're a good heuristic for sort of separating the wheat from the chaff to start.
Love it. And I love that the Divine Seven is actually 8. That's fantastic.
The Divine 8, right? The Great 8? I don't know. I gotta
Great 8, yeah, it just works. I don't know. Yeah, Divine 7's pretty special. So I will link to your blog post as well, so that'll be in the show notes so folks can check that out. Cool. So TNT, let's talk about that.
Okay. So TNT, you're basically breaking down the elements of a successful as seen on TV commercial. Number one is start with the problem solution opening. It ties right into problem solving as a criteria for products. So you start by articulating a problem. This is the classic, black and white or desaturated scene you've seen in infomercials. Oh no, or are you tired of blah, blah, blah? That's the classic scene. But starting with the problem solution is opening is hard and fast.
I love the Flex Seal commercials that are relatively. I mean, they're not too old, but the opening scene there is like a leaky roof, and this guy with a pretty thick New Jersey accent. It's like this will cost thousands. These repairs will cost thousands of dollars or whatever. And then he gets into his pitch. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, Phil's done an amazing job with the Flex Seal line. He blew it up into a whole business. Yeah, and that's classic DR as well. So yes, there are actually supercuts on YouTube that you can find of. I had a favorite. Maybe I can give it to you to put in the show notes. But it's like a supercut of all these problem scenes, and it's just hilarious. When you put them all together, it's like this person has the worst day ever. They fall down the stairs, and their garbage bag breaks, and their roof is leaking, and it just goes on and on. And so start with the problem solution opening. That I've actually done a lot of. Again, it's a very measurable type of marketing. So I've done a lot of A/B testing with more aspirational openings or not having a problem solution opening, and every time, hands down, the problem opening is what wins. So.
Yeah, and a lot of that probably ties back to it's more motivational. We're more motivated to avoid pain than to seek pleasure, right? Like, and so it makes sense. Yeah, if we got a problem, we want to solve it. So yeah, it makes sense that's going to be usually the strongest opening.
Yeah, so that's one. Number two, showcase unique features and benefits. So, any good web page or Amazon page has a list of features and benefits. So we just showcase those particular things. Again, this part of the commercial, these kind of go in order, by the way. So this part of the commercial is about establishing what it is, what it does, why it's different. So you showcase that. And then, tied into that is number three, which is demonstrate or demo the product repeatedly, which includes that magic demo. In TechLight, we have the magic demo of, this is supposed to be a super tough military durable flashlight. So, of course, we run it over with a Humvee. We freeze it in a block of ice and it still works. We do all these crazy military tough demos.
Yeah, which both of those are really memorable. Seeing it in the block of ice and someone chips away the ice so you can tell it's actually ice. And then, the Humvee, that was better than just a van or something, right? It's got to be military.
Had to be a Humvee, right?
It's perfect.
Had to be a Humvee. And then, explain how the product works. It's a little mundane, but, here's how it works. Here's how it works. Part of a commercial is important. Who does a really good job outside of DR is Dyson. So Dyson's really selling you on their sophisticated vortex technology inside of there, which is why you're going to spend, 3 times as much as you would normally spend on a vacuum. So they use that to great effect. Number 5, prove value by comparing and contrasting. So when you think about this, I always think of the most iconic it's usually a side-by-side demonstration. You can also do before and afters, of course, number 1, right, in terms of comparing and contrasting. Before, your roof was leaking, after your roof is no longer leaking, or, weight loss, you see the guy with the gut and then the guy doesn't have the gut anymore. So that's before and afters is the classic example of that. But a second one, in terms of contrasting, Bounty, the quicker picker-upper, to this day, they do that split screen scene where they both go over a regular paper towel and the Bounty goes over the same spill, and there's a smear and left behind liquid on the negative side and on the product X side, and on their side it gets the whole thing. So that is that drove, I think,
brilliant. It immediately communicates the difference, and it just lands. It works.
Yeah. And then we have number 6 is establish credibility with testimonials. So we don't always use testimonials. Sometimes we use celebrity endorsements. Basically this boils down to, you mentioned psychology earlier. I'm a student of social psychology, particularly Robert Cialdini.
Yeah, I love it.
And he has a concept called social proof. So we, especially in longer form, which is the half-hour infomercials, they use a lot of social proof. A lot of people telling you how great the product is in a credible way, so that builds that sale for them.
And the other interesting thing about social proof, we use this a lot for YouTube or any kind of digital ads, video ads, is especially user-generated content, but testimonials are pretty engaging as well if they're done the right way. And I know you know how to craft the right testimonial or edit the right testimonial, but they tell a story, right? And stories are very engaging. So it provides that social proof, gives you confidence that it's going to work. And it's also pretty engaging and helps draw somebody in. It's interesting. I remember going through a period of time when I had some clients tell me like, testimonials, it's old school. But I think everybody's over that. Like they know now this works. It's gonna work forever. That's like saying good offers. So like old school. Like okay. So anyway,
yeah, I've heard that so many times in so many different ways. Like there's so many things that everything that I'm saying and everything that I will tell people is tested. That's tried and true means it's been tested. And before me, billions of dollars have been spent proving these things out. So I always kind of have to laugh when people say, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. That's not my brand. That's not my style. I'm like, okay.
It's great, but we know it works. Do you want sales or,
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so where were we? Cialdini's social proof. Yes, very important. Raise and answer obvious questions and objections. So we mentioned Sugarman earlier. This is basically Sugarman. Sugarman has many things, but one of the things that jumped out at me enough to put it into my.
Also, Sugarman was the guy. I don't know if we mentioned before. So, wrote the book Triggers, which we recommend. But he's also the guy behind Blue Blockers, right? That was one of his big successes. Yeah, I love that.
Blue Blockers. He was the first guy to do the blue blocking sunglasses. He had those great. That had a lot of social proof in it. There's a character that he found on the beach, that did some dance moves and stuff. It's very iconic, and that of course led to many variations. And to this day, you can buy blue blocking sunglasses. They still sell. So his thing was to, and this is selling 101. He just applied it to DR print. You sit down and you think about any Amazon seller knows these things because there is a section on every page where you try to anticipate questions and give answers, or people submit questions and you give answers. So his idea was to include that. If you have, he said in a funny way, he said, raise and answer obvious questions and objections, but make sure you have a good answer.
Yes, totally.
So don't raise it if you don't have a good answer. But to anticipate what people are going to say, like, that's not real or whatever. So then you show them that it's real, or this can't possibly do X, and then you think of a way to show that. So if you have a good answer, anticipate the. Again, that's just selling 101, but he applied it to DR. Number 8, present a powerful offer at an incredible price. That was what it sounds like. It's become a bit mundane, crossing out the higher price and putting the lower price, but. DR infomercial marketers kind of pioneered all this stuff.
Yeah. It still works, and it still works online. And we've tested this quite a bit, and we have clients that will test this during holiday sales or whatever. Having that was price that's marked out, and then the current price, it's powerful. It's got that psychological effect of, hey, I want to buy this anyway, and now you're giving me a little extra justification and a little extra logic that I can use to say, yeah, okay, I'm doing the right thing here. I'm making a smart choice to buy this. I'm saving money to buy this product. So yeah, still works.
Saving more money than I'm spending. I mean, look at it. It's and of course, along with that goes all the techniques. Some people don't use them anymore. They've fallen out of favor. They're a little bit manipulative, but sometimes if you can do supplies are limited and things like that. All the infomercial guys pioneered every technique you can think of. Supplies are limited. Act now, and you get a special discount. Reasons to. There's so many ways you can use this. Like one of the modern innovations that I've seen that I thought was pretty clever is, obviously when you air a commercial, some percentage of people, a growing percentage every day, are going to go to Amazon and find they're going to skip your website. They're not going to call your number. They're not going to go to your website. They're going to go to Amazon and they're going to search. So they're going to find competitors, and you don't really want that ideally. So we used to have this offer not available in stores, which was true because you can get a bonus item or something only on TV. That was incentive to call us and order direct, But now I've seen one of the top players saying, this offer only is not available on Amazon. The product's on Amazon, of course, because you'd be stupid not to have it there. But they have a special offer, a TV offer, that you can only get by going to their website. So that's incentivizing, to come into my sales funnel and stay away from all those competitors and knockoffs and stuff that you're going to find when you go to
And
Amazon.
I guess that's even powerful, even if you're selling your own product on Amazon. And we've seen this a lot, by the way. Quick side note: we help brands, launch on Amazon. We do it all the time, and yeah, we found successful companies that are really good at running their own ads and driving traffic through Facebook or YouTube, and they're generating this little business, this little ecosystem on Amazon of people that are feeding off of their brand or off of their ads. And so then once we launch, their brand on Amazon, then they can get those sales. But I'm guessing even if it's your listing, even if you're controlling Amazon, you still probably want to drive some traffic to your own funnel once you get the customer data and all that. But also, you probably need to get some of that data pretty quickly, right, to know that the campaign is working, right? Because you need that feedback to know, is the DRTV campaign working? And you need that more in real time than probably you can get from Amazon.
Yeah. It's solving Amazon, I'm sure, is a big challenge for everyone.
It is.
It's been a challenge for us as well as that's evolved to, the numbers are crazy. And of course, I'm part of the problem because I love my Amazon Prime too.
Totally.
So I think everyone's trying to solve that. It's become a huge part. Like I said, when I started, 5% web, still having mail-in orders, Now of course, web is so dominant and Amazon's just eating all that. So phone is like, talk about phone, people are like, what? People call in and order. It seems so antiquated, but it still happens significantly enough that we would put phone numbers, obviously still. But it's everything became web, and now everything's becoming Amazon. So
yeah, what are those breakdowns now between phone, website and Amazon? Do you know? It probably varies, but
averaging the averages, I would say, up to half of your direct sales are going to come from Amazon. People are going to go to Amazon, maybe 40%. I've heard. I don't have a lot of good numbers, but I'm just. This is
Sure.
Take it with a grain of salt, back of the envelope. And then I think phones probably got to be down to like 20%. But it's still significant. So it's enough significant. And again, it would depend too on what you're selling. Obviously, a lot of people are using a hybrid model of DR where they're doing branding and they're driving to web and they're doing other things. E-commerce, the .com people are doing DR now, performance-driven marketing. So that wouldn't apply to them. But when we're talking about classic as seen on TV, I'd say maybe 20% phone, 30% your microsite, the rest Amazon, something like that.
Yeah,
Amazon's just eating everything.
Makes sense. Awesome.
Yeah.
So back to TNT. Were we ready for number 9?
TNT, yes. Use it. It's dynamite.
Yeah.
So you present a powerful offer at an incredible price, and then you increase your perceived value with a value comparison, right? So you could pay, $100 for this, but today you'll get this better product for only $19.99. So we do a lot of value comparisons. Sometimes it's just a matter of if we go back a few years, we used to zero in on this is going to sound really dated too, like catalog page.
Yeah.
We use web pages at some point, where you zoom in on the price and you circle in red, and it's like, look how much this is.
Well, I even
and
saw that you guys did that with TacLight, right? I think you like zoom into an Amazon listing and show it. These are $59, but not TacLight.
Yes. 7 or 8 years ago when we shot that, that was still I would use it today, but I don't know exactly how I would use it because it's moving so fast. But back then it was still a good selling technique. And there's all these techniques, by the way, they evolve, but they're still the fundamentals. So it's just a question of figuring out how to apply value comparing today. But especially if there's if you're the first one to break price. And again, I got to put the asterisks of Amazon on this because now it's becoming much more common to find all different price points. But the fundamental technique is to find someone who's selling something for an expensive price and then be the first one to have to break the price. So we used to do that all the time. We would whether it was on live shopping or even an infomercial going into short form, we would break the price. It would be $60 and we'd bring it down to $19.99, $14.99. So if you can break a price, you definitely want to call that out in your advertising. The first one to be at this crazy price.
Love it. So number 10, the grand finale of TNT.
Number 10 is actually the title of one of the books that we mentioned. A guy named Al Eichhoff wrote a book called Or Your Money Back. He's the guy who coined that phrase. And conceptually, it's minimizing risk with a satisfaction guarantee. Again, something that might seem mundane. People don't give it as much thought as they should. And somebody who's a really conscientious marketer should think about ways to innovate in this space. Like, how good can you make that guarantee? We used to, it was in the beginning, it was as simple, in the Al Eichhoff days, as simple as, if you're not completely satisfied, we'll give you your money back, no questions asked. That was innovative at that time, and then it became, we'll pay, I'm sure you've seen in some of the early web days, we'll pay your return shipping, we'll give you triple the money back. Like, I think it was Popeil who used to do certain crazy, like, you'll lose money on that when people abuse you for your guarantee, and I looked at the numbers, and it's like a small fraction will actually fill it out and send it in. He had a couple hurdles to jump through, and he was like, it's worth it for the ones that get through the process and go through all that trouble. It's just worth it to pay them double or whatever it is, to have the power of that marketing. And Sugarman was a fan of that as well. He would give these, I think he called it total satisfaction guarantees or something like that. I don't remember the exact terminology, but his idea was like this guarantee is so good that people will actually think you're getting ripped off.
Yeah.
And that gives them the confidence to take that final step and close the sale.
Which makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned like free shipping both ways. I think Zappos was one of the early ones to do that online, and they realized that that's the biggest hurdle for someone to buy shoes online, is that it's not going to be the right size, and returning it's going to be a nightmare. It's going to cost a lot of money. So they invested actually marketing dollars into those returns. So free shipping both ways, no questions asked. We'll exchange it. And
what is Prime doing? Prime doing the same thing.
Right.
Like you can don't even put it in a box. Just like literally like throw it through the window of your local UPS, and we'll take it back and give you a refund. Like they're making it as frictionless as possible.
Totally.
And that's the concept. Yeah.
That increases consumption and demand and sales enough to make it worth any of the hoops you have to jump through as a business or the added cost as a business. It far outweighs that. So. Love that. Well, man, that was gold. So we got the Divine 7, actually, or the Great 8, and then 10 tried and true. So that's fantastic. So we're up against time a little bit, but I don't want to cut this short because it's been awesome. So just a couple more things that I want to chat about, kind of as we wrap up. You said you could know in as early as a couple weeks that this is working. When do you know? What do you have to see to know that your DRTV campaign is working? And talk just a little bit about the math behind DRTV.
Yes. So usually in 2 weekends, that's usually how we run weekend to weekend testing. We've aired on enough cable networks, major cable networks, to get so each, and again, this is changing a little bit. Attribution, as in everything, is becoming a bit tricky, but I'll just talk about the general model. When it was phone and web and things that you can key, we would have a different phone number in every commercial that ran, every station. This is called keyed marketing. It comes to print as well. And then and then we would match up the server logs for the times that based on when the commercial aired, match that up with the server logs to know what orders are coming from where. So we get pretty granular in that regard. We aired on these 10 stations over the course of a week or 2 weekends, and most of the media is on the weekends that airs. And then you immediately get that you get daily reports, you get a weekly report, and a few days after that you get a final report. We include some sales that trickle in. We call it drag. But looking at those numbers, again, the key metric in Asking on TV is the cost per order, CPO. So it's basically your ad spend divided by the orders that you got. It's similar to a cost per acquisition.
Yeah.
And based on that number and based on experience, I have a little spreadsheet business model that factors in all the costs. We already know what number we're aiming for. Every campaign has a pre-calculated break even. And obviously, if you get below that break even, you're lower the CPO, the better, and you're golden. So yeah, it's very fast, and we can also what's called buy manage. So that's what a direct response agency will do. They will, based on which stations are performing, which rotations, which is a certain time of day is performing. You can get pretty granular with that as well, even down to the hour. They will buy manage the ones out that are not driving sales based on the data they have. And they'll heavy up on the ones that are driving sales.
Totally makes sense.
That's basically how it works in a nutshell. Do you have any more?
No, that's perfect. Yeah, so you're media buying at that point. You're optimizing, just like we would do online. But then I know one of the questions that I have, and that I'm sure others do as well. How does a product like tack light sell for $14.95, and how do you make money? Because you're spending a lot on the CPOs. What are they, like $1? So, but for products like that, are you really relying on upsells and cross sells and things on the back end, or talk about that a little bit? Yeah,
and there's a science to that as well, and some techniques that I've collected and applied over the years. Where of course it is upsells. Your average sale is not $14.99.
Right. Yeah.
It could be back in the day, it could be as high as $60 off of a $10 initial offer. So there's a lot of things happening on the back end. Things that you really can't do as efficiently on Amazon,
right.
But you can do on a web, microsite, and on the phone, of course, as well. And the biggest things are just this word deluxe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's worth listening to this podcast, people.
Deluxe.
If you apply this word deluxe to something for some psychological weird reason that nobody knows, but's been proven over and over again over 100 years of direct selling, people will order it. So we used to see strange things like 40% of customers will order the deluxe.
Wow.
Why? Because you called it deluxe.
You called it deluxe. We all want the deluxe. We can tell our friends when we show them, like, this is the deluxe. No big deal.
What is it? What does that mean? It can be a color even. Yeah. This is in the the copper gold color. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And people will go for it. So it's a very powerful word. We obviously try to deliver some extra value and make the product a deluxe product. But so that was key, and we did that up front. We'd always order these things by the way in the order of most converting to the least converting based on all the history and knowledge that we had. So deluxe is first, obviously multiples of the same thing that you ordered. For some reason, people like to order 2 and 3, especially if you give them an incentive. We used to see crazy things there. I had a producer friend called the Mooch Factor. And that even applies to the commercial, by the way. So we used to offer a lot of bonuses, little bonus items like, throwaway things that you get for free if you order now. And then we started doing a lot of buy one, get ones, because for some reason, it didn't matter what it was. You might say to yourself, why would anybody need 2 of these? But for some reason, if you give them 2, it stimulates the sale. So you can apply that on the back end as well. People who obviously bought 1, they're more likely to buy 2 or 3. You can make arguments. We have classic arguments like buy 1 for you and 1 for your family and 1 for your friends and 1 for your mom and, So 1 for the house and 1 for the car, these are classic as seen on TV arguments. So those 2 things alone drove most of the back end revenue, or drive most of the back end revenue. And then, little things like you can do a longer guarantee, like longer warranties, which is familiar to people who have ever bought a vacuum cleaner at a department store back in the day. They're, or any electronic item at Best Buy. They're always, or even now on Amazon, they're trying to sell you, guarantees and insurance all the time. So we
Totally.
would do a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Accessories. It sort of trickled down to smaller and smaller percentages. A lot of times we load it up and then pare it back as we saw what people were responding to. Because you get all that data too. The phone center gives you all the data, the website obviously, and you can study that and say, okay, this is converting, this is not converting, swap things out. It's a very scientific endeavor in that regard, in that we keep iterating, we keep trying different offers on TV, we keep trying different things on the back end to maximize that average sale.
And is there usually a certain magic number you're going for where, it's maybe you're offering it for $14.99 or $19.99, but you're trying to get 50, 60 as the average order value?
Yeah, so we have a thing that's similar to, I guess, ROAS. We call it, and maybe people have heard of it, media efficiency ratio.
Yeah, totally.
Some call it ratio. So like 2-to-1 was the gold standard, and everyone was shooting for a 2-to-1 in terms of revenue to advertising spend. That was, as a general rule of thumb, that's what we were shooting for. And then, of course, got better than that, 3-4-to-1. If you got a 4-to-1, you're popping champagne.
You're going nuts. You're buying all the airtime you can possibly buy at that point.
Yeah, buy the world supply. My first boss in this industry, Andy Cabani, used to when he got really excited and we had really low CPOs, he would call up the agency and he would say, "Buy the world supply of media." So,
dude, that's
say, what
the
do you
call
mean?
that the
Just
media
do it.
company wants to get. They're like, you got it. I will buy everything right now. So that's awesome. Jordan, this has been an absolute blast. This totally lived up to expectations. Super fun. I'm actually quite bummed that we need to wrap up here, but we are for sure running out of time. So a couple of quick things. First of all, just mention this as we rapid fire. Favorite projects you've worked on, and then I want to talk about how people can connect with you. Maybe they want to dip their toes into DRTV, or maybe they just want to learn more. So we'll talk about that in a second. But rapid fire, favorite campaigns you've been involved with, and why?
Yeah, so the first one is nearest and dearest to my heart would be the Finishing Touch line of personal hair removers. It became Micro Touch and a bunch of other products that eventually became Flawless and is now with Church and Dwight. It was a big sale in our business, but that was the first one I worked on. So those are the first campaigns that I worked on. So those are near and dear. I've done a bunch of fun stuff with. I've worked with Billy Mays, so anything I did with him was always fun. It's on YouTube now as well. There was a short-lived Discovery show called Pitchmen, which starred Billy Mays and Anthony Sullivan, and I'm actually in one of those episodes.
Nice.
Because he and I had done a deal. Yeah, my 5 of my 15 minutes of fame, I guess. I worked on a few projects with him. We did the Magic Mesh years ago. Magic Mesh, which is a curtain, a mesh curtain. It's like a screen you can walk through and it closes automatically behind you. That one's near and dear because it was the first one I did with Fred Paddock and Paddock Productions out of Kansas City. Shout out to them, the home of the Super Bowl champs.
Absolutely. Go Chiefs, man. I'm from KC originally. Huge Chiefs fan.
Yeah, so that was the first project we did together. It became a big success and aired for many years. And then, like all the TACLite stuff that we've done, it's, Nick Bolton, it's been great to work with. He's a spokesman. It's all the fun stuff that we did, fun pseudo-military type stuff that we did over the years. It's been 8 or 9 years, I think now, that we've been shooting commercials for that and introducing new items. So all those have been great. Nick's great. The Paddock team, which did that as well, is great. So I've had so much fun on all those commercials, thinking of new ways, new things to run it over with. We went to a tank park, and you can actually drive a tank. It's somewhere in Missouri, and we went there and ran over a bunch of products with a giant tank and crushed a car. I think that's a picture on my website if you go there.
Amazing. Do you know where in Missouri? I'm in Missouri. I'm in Springfield, so I'm about 2.5 hours south.
No, it's not Missouri. It's I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's in Minnesota.
Minnesota, okay.
It's called like driveatank.com. You can probably just Google it and you'll find it. But you can actually go there and drive a tank. And we went there for the day and shot a bunch of really fun stuff. So, thinking of just imagine you're on your 26th or 27th TAC commercial and okay, what could we possibly run this thing over with now? Like we've done everything. I've done a monster truck. So it's so much fun just trying to come up with these ideas.
One-upping yourself on production, which is awesome. Fantastic. So for those that say, hey, I want to keep learning from Jordan, I want to check out some of his articles, some of his materials, where can they do that? And then what if they want to work with you? How can they get in touch with you that way?
Yeah, so I have the two companies you mentioned. My consulting company is called Scimark, SCIMARK. So if you just go to scimark.com, you can find
Combo
everything about
science
me
and
there.
marketing, easy to remember.
Yeah, yes. That's Hopkins Scientific Advertising, which you mentioned, which you knew, which I was impressed by.
Yeah, I've got it on the
That,
shelf in the office.
yes, that was like a very inspirational book for me. So when I named my consulting company, I named it after that. So Scientific Marketing, Scimark. So Scimark.com, it's got a bunch of stuff on it, everything you want to know to find out more about me and contact me. And then I write a weekly Substack. It used to be a blog. I've been doing it since 2007. It's sort of inside baseball about this industry. It's called the Scimark Report, which you can find on Substack. And LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find all my contact stuff and websites and projects and everything on LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel, Scimark channel, which has all my commercials on it. If you care to peruse my collection,
I think you got to. They're fantastic, and so if you enjoyed this podcast, you need to go to the YouTube channel and watch it, and also get the Substack as well. So awesome,
great,
good stuff. And then did you mention Paragon?
Yeah, Paragon. So Paragon is Paragon is my product company. We do our own products. We design, manufacture, and supply. I do the commercials. My partner Bill Corliss does all the China side development and logistics and managing the supply chain. So we partnered up later on after he brought me into the industry and I got some experience and he did his thing. We later on partnered up in this company called Paragon where the tech projects are actually our products. We've developed them. We do all of our own products now, but
nice.
For many years I just did consulting for other people, and then I started doing my own commercials and my own projects. So most of the ones we talked about are my own products as well as commercials. So or our own, I should say, from Paragon. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Jordan, this has been an absolute blast. I'm looking forward to doing part 2 at some point, or maybe we can talk about how these things work on YouTube at some point. But just fabulous job. Super, super fun. And thanks for coming on.
Great. Thanks for having me. It was great talking to you.
Absolutely. And as always, thank you for tuning in. We'd love to hear from you. What would you like to hear more of on the show? And if you love this episode, which I bet you did, share it with someone that you think might benefit from it. And hey, if you haven't done it already, we'd love that review on iTunes. Helps other people discover the show. And with that, until next time, thank you for listening.